The plains of Kurukshetra hold nearly 5 million men. 18 Akshauhinis, ancient military divisions, are locked in tight, battle-ready formations, waiting for the first strike. A single sound cuts through the air, the piercing blast of Bhishma Pitama's conch shell. The war has begun. For the Pandava brothers leading the opposing army, Bhishma is the enemy general, but he is also their beloved grandfather, the man who raised them. That creates an immediate, paralyzing problem on day one. The greatest obstacle to victory is the psychological terror of drawing weapons against the patriarch of their own family. To understand why Bhishma is such an immovable obstacle, we have to look at the divine boons in play. This logic chart maps out Bhishma's unique defense mechanism, a power called Icha Mrityu. It means he possesses absolute control over the time of his own death. He cannot be killed unless he chooses to die. That immunity creates a massive strategic bottleneck. Bhishma has taken an unbreakable vow to protect the throne of Hastinapur at all costs. Against him is his grandson Arjuna, whose sacred duty as a warrior demands he fight for justice and strike the throne's defender down. And then there is a third critical constraint on the battlefield. Arjuna's charioteer is Krishna, who possesses the power to end the war instantly. But Krishna has promised that he will not bear a single weapon during the entire conflict. We are left with overlapping vows that guarantee a stalemate. An invincible commander holds the line. The only warrior capable of matching him is paralyzed by affection, and the one divine figure present is sworn to pacifism. With the stalemate locked in, Bhishma begins his advance. He moves through the Pandava ranks entirely unchallenged. Not even seasoned commanders like Dhrishtadyumna can slow his chariot down. Arjuna tries to counter him. But every time he raises his famous Gandiva bow, he looks across the battlefield, sees the grandfather who taught him how to play as a child, and his hands tremble. As a direct result, Arjuna fights a defensive, half-hearted war. He deflects arrows but refuses to aim for the kill. Bhishma, bound by his vow to the throne, fights with absolute, lethal efficiency. The toll is immediate and catastrophic. Entire divisions are wiped out, and the Pandava army is pushed to the brink of total collapse within hours. Arjuna's reluctance to harm his grandfather has morphed into a deadly liability. His misplaced compassion is actively ensuring the slaughter of his own men. From the front of Arjuna's chariot, Krishna watches the massacre unfold. He sees clearly that Arjuna's emotional attachment is completely blinding him to his duty as a protector of his army. So Krishna acts. He drops the reins, leaps down from the chariot, and storms into the dust of the battlefield, his eyes burning with fury. He ignores the swords and spears around him. Instead, he reaches down, grabs the splintered, heavy wooden wheel of a broken chariot, and hoists it above his head to crush Bhishma himself. Arjuna is completely horrified. He abandons his weapons, jumps out of the chariot, and sprints after Krishna, physically wrapping his arms around his charioteer's waist to drag him back. He screams at Krishna, reminding him of his solemn oath. "Prabhu, you gave your word. You swore you would not pick up a weapon." Arjuna, who has spent the morning failing his own sacred duty out of sentimentality, he now finds himself lecturing a divine avatar on why promises must never be broken. Krishna's charge is a deliberate provocation. By abandoning his own sacred word, he forces Arjuna to face a horrific reality. God is willing to stain his own honor because his warrior refuses to do his job. This hierarchy diagram maps the logic. When a specific personal promise results in the destruction of an entire people, that promise becomes a shackle. Krishna is showing that when personal honor and the survival of righteousness collide, honor must be sacrificed. Witnessing this sacrifice shatters Arjuna's delusion. He realizes that if Krishna is willing to sin on his behalf, he can no longer afford the luxury of his own hesitation. True duty often demands stepping into the mud. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your own moral purity to prevent a far greater evil from winning the war. Arjuna finally accepts that he must fight his grandfather. But his renewed resolve doesn't change the physical reality on the ground. Bhishma still holds the boon of Ichamrityu. He still controls his own death. Anger and thousands of arrows are completely useless against a man who dictates the rules of his own mortality. Conventional combat will not work. To defeat an immortal, they have to stop relying on physical strength. They have to exploit a strict loophole within Bhishma's personal, rigid moral code. They need a combatant that Bhishma will absolutely refuse to strike back against. Tomorrow, we look at the warrior of two lives, Shikhandi. Victory here requires targeting the warrior's soul rather than his shield. Like, share, and follow for Day 29.